I'd like to start with Pat and give us just an overview of the economics that are going on right now in the construction industry and what the outlook looks like right now.
Well, thank you, Brian, and certainly thanks to the whole Aldridge village that it took to get me into the virtual world, specifically Selena. And thanks to all of you for letting me be part of a discussion of the future. What we're going to talk about today is certainly elements of that. We are about ankle to calf deep in what will be ultimately disruptive change to the industry in the basic model of how we build. And a lot of what's discussed today will be elements of our new world. I'd last like to say this would be a very different conversation today if it wasn't for Jerry Nevlid and people like him at the AGC and other trade associations that were able to get the construction industry declared an essential industry. And as a result of that, this is not a particularly discouraging picture. We started on a very good note. The Houston market was at an all-time high, 35.5 billion, driven a little bit by a $9 billion allocation to heavy highway for infrastructure related situations. It was also very good that Dallas was 39.5 and San Antonio, Austin over 25. So Texas contractors had $100 billion worth of work in just the major Texas markets. In addition to that, the U.S. construction, and this is construction to be put in place, was 1.19 trillion. So we went into this with a good head of steam. In talking anecdotally only, here in Texas, in the commercial side at least, it seems like about 10% of that volume has either been delayed or a bit of it canceled. But it depends upon the type of funding, whether it went forward or not. Lots of the projects that are funded by government sources may have some trouble next year, but those funds are allocated for this year. So we've got a pretty good situation. By the end of the year, a few more may be impacted, but we can live with this. And it appears that we in Texas probably have a better picture by 10 or 15% than they do nationally. The question in these contractors' mind is what is going to be in planning that still goes forward. There is some incentive in that you can borrow money right now cheaper than you've been able to do in a long time. So that's an optimistic. It's not that we're not without pain in the Houston economy. In March and April, we lost 350,000 jobs, and 130,000 of those have been regained. If you compared March through May of 2019 to March through May of 2020, retail sales were off by 66%. But June over June, we're back to even. So that looks like a pretty decent situation. I've mentioned a couple of markets that are in change. One is general purpose office space driven by energy. The energy business does not need as many people. From peak to trough, 2014 to 2016, Houston lost 78,000 Houston based jobs. Since 2016, we've gained back only 40,000 of those. So the energy business is changing a little bit on the negative side from construction. Conversely, the medical business, not only are we getting older as baby boomers, some of you that are still there, but also the fact that we now have a real effort to have one of the great biopharma research complexes in the world. And TMC3 is getting underway. It's definitely a go. So that'll replace a number of those good jobs that we're losing in energy. A couple of last things. When we get through this, and we will, the history of the industry is we've had 5 things, at least as bad as this, that we've come out swinging from. That Ray Perryman, the kind of guru of Texas in terms of economy, says that by 2045, Houston will move from its current 650 billion GDP to about 1.15 trillion. And if you get a GDP number, take 5% of it, and that'll be the minimum of construction put in place. That positive picture is for all of Texas. So as restaurateur Jim Good put on his pie boxes, you might give some serious thought to thanking your lucky star you live in Texas. It's a decent picture once we get through.